Asenu and Barikadazoa. Last week's story was titled How the Tortoise Married the King's Daughter. We learned that with determination we can always overcome a challenging event. Today's story is titled The King's Only Son. It was also written by Remi Adedeji. Enjoy. Story. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a very rich king. He had many properties, clothes, and slaves, but he only had one son whom he loved very much. One day, he called the son and said to him, "My son, you are my only heir. When I die, I want you to be king. But I have many slaves, and some of my slaves are wicked. They do not like you and do not want you to be king. But follow me, I will show you some things." The prince followed his father into his room. In his father's room, there were many things hanging on the wall. Some of these were an old crown, some coral beads, and an old staff. "Look at that crown, my son," the king said as he pointed to the crown. "That was my father's crown." Then he pointed to the coral beads, and these beads were his. Then he removed the staff from the wall, and that was his staff. The son looked at his face. "Now listen to me," the king said. "My father gave them to me. I also want to give you my crown, my coral beads, and my staff." "Why?" asked the prince. "Because you may need them someday," replied the king. His son did not understand, but he asked no more questions. The king brought out a big box from under his bed. This box contained the king's crown, coral beads, and staff. "These are all yours," he said. "Keep them well." "But where shall I keep them?" replied the prince. "Follow me," his father said. "Bring the crown, coral beads, and staff with you." The king and the son went to the back of the palace. "Nobody can be king without these things," the king said. "When I die, the chiefs will ask you to bring the 3 things that are most important to a king. These 3 things, the crown, coral beads, and staff, are the most important things to a king. Let's bury them in the ground where nobody can steal them." So they dug the ground and hid the crown, coral beads, and staff in the ground. Then the king planted a tree on the ground above the items he buried. Nobody saw them when they were hiding and burying the items at the back of the palace. Many years after, the king fell ill and died. His family were very sad, and his son cried because his father was a good man. The chiefs and the villagers were also sad about the death of their king. The chiefs met to choose a new king. Some wanted the king's son, but many of the slaves did not want him to be king because they also wanted to be king. One slave said, "The king chose me to be king." "No," said another. "He asked me to be king after him." The slaves quarreled among themselves, but the king's son did not say anything. The chiefs knew what to do. They called the first slave. "Do you want to be king?" the chiefs asked. "Yes, I want to be king," replied the slave. "All right, go and bring the 3 most important things to a king." "That is very easy," the slave replied, and he went and brought big garments, caps, and shoes. "These are not the most important things to a king," the chiefs replied. They called the second slave. "Do you want to be king?" they asked him. He replied that he would want to be a king, and again he was told to bring 3 things that are important to a king. The second slave brought back money. He also added that many houses and wives are important to a king. The chiefs did not agree with him. At last, they called the king's only son. "Do you want to be king?" they asked him. "Yes, I want to be king." "Which 3 things are most important to a king?" they asked. The king's son did not answer the question at once, but he said to the chiefs, "Follow me to the back of the palace and I will show them to you." The chiefs followed him to the back of the palace. Many people followed him, including his mother. "What is my son going to show the chiefs?" she thought to herself, but she said nothing. "Give me a cutlass," the prince said. "A cutlass? What are you going to do with a cutlass?" his mother asked. "Just get me a cutlass," he replied. "He is mad," some people said. At last, somebody brought him a cutlass. He took it and went to the side of the tree, singing as he tried to cut down the tree. He sang, "Mother, I shall cut down this tree. I shall cut it down. Mother, I shall cut down this tree. I shall cut it down. Father's crown, his coral beads, his staff I know are all under this tree. I shall bring them out, then I shall be king." His mother did not understand. She was not listening to her son's song because she didn't know about what his father had told him. "Are you mad?" she cried. "Why are you cutting down this tree?" Again, he sang his song. "Mother, I shall cut down this tree. I shall cut it down. Mother, I shall cut down this tree. I shall cut it down. Father's crown, his coral beads, his staff I know are all under this tree. I shall bring them out, then I shall be king." Everybody watched him as he cut down the tree. At last, when the tree fell down, he searched for the three items. He brought out the crown, coral beads, and the staff. Everyone, including his mother, was surprised. He approached the chief and said, "These three things are important to a king: his crown, coral beads, and staff." "That's right," the chief agreed with him. "You are our king." And that is how the prince became the king of the land. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for listening. Join me next week as I tell you more tales from Moonlight Stories. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. Say goodbye and stay blessed.